He's the most dominant no-gi fighter that there's ever been, and I'm if he decides to hang it up, I don't anticipate anybody being as dominant as he's been.
I'm Justin Lesko, a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu brown belt and former pro MMA fighter.
And I'm Mike Callahan, a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu brown belt and a law enforcement officer.
As fans of our show could probably guess, these are dark, dark times for us, with Gordon Ryan taking an indefinite hiatus from competition.
I'm over here reading Don't Kill Yourself books.
You said the book wasn't yours.
Don't worry about the book. It's not mine. I have glanced at it.
Well, since we may be entering a post-Gordon Ryan world, we should take a look at what that world might look like. Who, if anyone, can take his place at the top and take over as the number one star in the sport?
You know the only thing that can cheer me up when I'm feeling down?
Buy more rash guards?
Buy more rash guards.
Well, fortunately, the coupon code podcast15 gets you and everyone else a discount at epicrollbjj.com.
And if the rash guards don't cheer you up, they got everything else that you can need. They got joggers, shorts, shirts, coffee mugs, stickers, keys, hoodies, whatever you need, they got you.
Give Epic Roll a follow on Instagram at epicrollbjj, and make sure you check them out at epicrollbjj.com.
And when you visit their site and you're placing your order, make sure that you use the coupon code podcast15 to get 15% off of all your orders.
Let's preview a jiu-jitsu world without Gordon Ryan. Welcome to That Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. Well, I was looking forward to one Gordon Ryan match in particular, the match against Shinya Aoki, which was going to be his first match under the One Championship banner. And then we got really bad news at the end of last week that Gordon Ryan, due to ongoing health issues, is possibly forever. Maybe I shouldn't be dramatic, but he's not going to be competing for the foreseeable future, and that is a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, so for everybody who doesn't know, he came out, I guess it was like a couple months ago, after he moved to Puerto Rico, and he was kind of detailing like the seriousness of the medical issues in his GI tract that he was experiencing, and essentially what he put out there, and there's no reason not to believe him, but that his stomach doesn't fully empty. So his bowels don't fully empty. So his body just retains this toxic waste, I guess, is what he was describing it to be, and it just causes him to be nauseous. It causes him to feel full all the time. He can't really eat. The way he's described it is he's been laid up for days, weeks at a time. He can't.
He said he was useless training. He said he was useless in the training room. Just in my Google medical degree, the Mayo Clinic said that this would be considered gastroparesis.
Yeah.
And for all of those of you out there who don't have a Google medical degree like I do, gastroparesis is a condition that affects the normal spontaneous movement of the muscles in your stomach. Ordinarily strong muscle contractions propel food through your digestive tract. But if you have gastroparesis, your stomach's mobility is slowed down or doesn't work at all, preventing your stomach from emptying properly.
Yeah, so I mean, this is from the sounds of it, like a very just serious and debilitating condition. When he first came out with it, I was looking it up, and it said there's no cure for it, but you can, seek treatment.
When I put out that YouTube short when this news first came out, I mentioned that right away when this story broke and it was about his stomach issues, every comment on every news article, every Reddit post was all about, oh, it's years and years of steroids catching up to him. And there are studies that talk about steroid use and how it can mess up your GI and how you can have chronic illnesses like this because of it.
Yeah, I think the one thing that he's been adamant about is that this is somehow related to the antibiotic, because he was on antibiotic for prolonged periods of time because he was dealing with staph infection after staph infection after staph infection. Yeah, I don't think he's ever confirmed that he uses steroids, but at the same time, he hasn't been, out there saying that he's clean. But I don't know.
Mean, it's hard to judge in pictures, but if you look at when he was competing at like 160 pounds versus what he was competing at right before this and you can see the difference in his body, it's hard to imagine that it was just purely hard training. But that's a debate for another day. But
let's not speculate about that. I think like the
like
big,
to your point, like I think he deserves to be believed that he says this is the issue and this is what it is. So whether or not you think he's taken steroids in the past, it really isn't the issue right now because he's obviously having problems. Like, can't we all just agree that we want him to come back and not have to dive down into the Gordon Ryan does steroids? I'm only bringing it up to address the fact that if we didn't bring it up, there'd be people in the comments on the YouTube video for this episode saying, you're not going to talk about the fact he did steroids? Well, that's why I said that.
Yeah, we're aware of all the rumors out there. We're not here to cast judgment on people for doing steroids, for not doing whatever. It's not what we're here for. We're doing part of the reason that we're putting this episode out is to kind of take a hard look at the future of jiu-jitsu, specifically the future of no-gi jiu-jitsu, now that he is at least temporarily out of the picture. Like, who takes over the top spot? Because let's be honest, I was watching a video of John Danaher today talking about Gordon Ryan, and they said, why is it so hard for him to find a match? And Danaher just simply said, he's like, people say they want a match, but when it comes time to sign on the dotted line, they change their mind. And the reason is that it's going to be extremely difficult for anyone to compete against him, let alone beat him.
Michael Sears told us the same thing. And if you missed that interview, the link's up here. You can click on it.
Yeah, Michael Sears, friend of the show.
Friend of the show. Michael Sears told us.
Friend of yours, friend of mine. And Michael Sears is our friend, so he wouldn't lie to us. He's a friend of the show.
He said that people don't want to take a match against someone who's going to be looking to finish them the entire time. They'd rather take a match against someone not named Gordon Ryan, who maybe if they lose, it's a ref's decision, or they lose on points if that's the rule set. Gordon is going to come and submit them, and they don't want that match. So people do talk a lot about wanting a match against Gordon. I talk about wanting a match against Gordon, but because I want to see if I can survive more than 10 seconds. I don't have any illusions that I'm going to beat him, but I'm also not one of the best guys in the world.
You can't. We could bring him in a hospital bed, and he would beat both of us in 10 seconds. But on the flip side of that, like you saw in that match against Roberto Jimenez, right, about how Roberto Jimenez came out attacking him, and when everyone who's ever trained jiu-jitsu knows that, the more aggressive you are, the more that you're potentially opening yourself up for attacks. And Gordon Ryan could have ended that match in the first 45 seconds, but he didn't want to end the match with a leg lock. He wanted to end the match with the armbar, which he almost got a minute and a half into the fight.
So there's only one of two options. Number one, he comes back and competes again. Number two, he does not come back and compete again. Those are the only two possibilities, all right? If he comes back and competes again, he said on Joe Rogan's podcast that part of what might be contributing to the problem is that he eats so much, he eats through the pain, so to speak, so that he can maintain his size, so that he can do well in absolute divisions. So I think there's a very strong possibility that if he does come back and compete again, he might be a smaller, more slimmed down version of himself that we've seen in the past. And I think we need to discuss how that might change the landscape of no-gi.
I don't think that that's going to matter, to be honest with you. He won in 2017. He won ADCC at 88 kilos and was in the absolute finals. And then in 2019, he was in 99 kilos and was in the absolute finals. So, I mean, even at 88 kilos, what's 88 kilos? It's 176 and then 17. So, is it? It's 190 some pounds?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then underneath that is 77 kilos. So I cannot imagine him being at 77 kilos. So, even if he's significantly lighter than he is, and he drops down to 88 kilos again, he's going to be fine.
He's not just gotten bigger and that's why he's won.
Yeah.
He's getting better all of the time. When you watch him compete, he's getting better and getting better and getting better. So while his size might come down if he needs it to help manage some of these issues, he's just going to keep getting better and better and better. And don't forget the fact that He just said he's basically been useless in the training room. And look what he's doing and the results he's getting when he's, quote unquote, useless in training. Imagine if he can get these issues under control and train even more intensively than he already does. I think that the size won't be too much of an issue unless he gets down to like 140 pounds, in which case, we might have a different conversation. But
I just think that he needs to take time to get this sorted out. I do think that we'll see him compete again.
Me too. I mean, that might be wishful thinking, but I agree with you. I think
I think it's reasonable to think that he'll compete again. He doesn't need to compete. He just laid out what he makes the other day. He made $200,000 this year, and he competed once a month. So he makes all of his money through his instructionals, through teaching. And I don't think this is going to be like a 2-year layoff. I
hope not. I hope not.
You hope not. Come on, man.
I had a note here where I wanted to talk about maybe some comparisons between Gordon and Conor McGregor in, similar parallel sports. And one of the things that I think that they do have in common is they've both accomplished as much as you really can accomplish in either of their sports, right? Like Conor had the Floyd fight, made a bunch of money, made a ton of money from the whiskey. He was already double champ. What left is there to accomplish? If you're Gordon, you've beaten everybody. The Galvo match is one thing that we'd all want to see, but we all know how that match is going to go if it happens. Gordon's going to run through him. So it's like, as much as I hope I see him compete again, I don't know what challenge is out there that he needs to compete again.
This is a very simple response to this. If you take money out of it, and Gordon Ryan is set up to live comfortably forever, but if you take money out of it and you take what Conor McGregor's done and what Gordon Ryan's done in their sports and just take money completely out of it, there is no comparison. Conor McGregor was never and will never be as dominant as Gordon Ryan has been. There is no comparison. Take the money aspect out of it.
That wasn't my point. My point was just that from the perspective of what's left to achieve.
Well, Conor in the sport, there's a lot left to achieve because when's the last time he won a fucking fight? He beat Cowboy Cerrone. He had a relatively short reign. I don't know. I think that he got out at the right time. I think that he's not,
he's still in. He's still fighting Dustin Poirier in like 3 weeks.
No, I'm saying weeks. When he took that break and he was boxing and everything, he saw the writing on the wall. If he would have fought Max Holloway again at 145, that was fucking problems. And then if he would have fought Khabib again at 155, that was fucking problems. And what's he gonna do? Fight at 170 and get destroyed by Kamaru Usman? There's no comparison between the two. Conor achieved a lot, but let's be honest, they were handpicking fights, that bullshit against putting Mendez in on 2 weeks notice and giving him the only two good fights that were out there were the Aldo fight and the Alvarez fight, the two championship fights. But, Gordon Ryan has been on top of this sport for the better part of almost 5 years, and he has fucking run through this sport. He lost to Felipe Pena twice, and he hasn't been able to get a rematch since. He lost to Vinny, and he lost to Leandro Lowe on a fight that he took on fucking 10 minutes notice.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the most dominant no-gi fighter that there's ever been, and I'm if he decides to hang it up, I don't anticipate anybody being as dominant as he's been.
Well, we'll get there in a second. We'll get there. Don't jump too far ahead.
I don't know. I went off on a tangent there. That was a rant because you're comparing. I don't like Conor McGregor.
I'm not comparing them. I think you're missing my point. I'm not comparing that they've done the same or they're the same skill level or Conor is the same as Gordon or vice versa. I'm just saying, outside of coming on our program, there isn't anything left for Gordon to achieve that he hasn't already achieved. Just like for Conor, there isn't anything out there for him to achieve that he hasn't already achieved. I'm not saying one is better than the other or they're I'm just saying in that regard, they're similar.
How about defending a world title?
Well, maybe I should have said something out there to achieve that actually could happen and is obtainable. If we assume that he can't compete again, and that's obviously not what I don't think anybody wants, if we assume that he can't come back and compete, that's a bad thing, but is it in some ways potentially like a good-ish thing for the sport where you maybe remove the king whose throne can't be challenged, you remove the guy who's sort of untouchable right now, and
the downside to that is we've seen everybody else compete, and I just don't know if that level of excitement that Gordon Ryan brings to all these matches is going to be present when the other guys are in these matches, when he's gone.
Well, I have two people who I think that I'm fans of and I think could take over potentially that top spot talent-wise and competition-wise and wins-wise. I don't think anyone can replace the persona or the gravitas, how about that word, that Gordon brings. I do think that, I have to say this very carefully because we as Americans get in trouble a lot. Craig Jones is very, very, very good and has been training with Gordon and the Death Squad for a long time. And I think that he could be a guy who moves from everyone's second favorite grappler and the perennial silver medalist to the top of the heap. And I also think Mason Fowler has wins over Craig Jones. So I'd like to see what's going to happen at the next ADCC. I'd like to see Mason Fowler up against more top guys. He just beat Kyle Chambers right before we started recording this. And it's like, let me see Mason Fowler on as many shows as possible.
Yeah, so Craig Jones is at the top of my list. And I
You said it wrong
thought
again. You said it wrong again.
Sorry, Australia.
Apparently you're not supposed to say it like the name Greg with a C. It's supposed to be like Craig. Like you have to hit the C like Craig.
Well, not going to do that. It's like It's like when Andy Bernard came back from anger management and he's like, "You can call me Drew." And
Drew.
Like, I'm not going to do that.
I can't control what you do. I can only control what I do.
Andy, Drew. I think that people thought that Craig Jones was overrated, and I think that if Gordon's not in the picture, they're going to just naturally find there's going to be people out there that are Craig Jones haters that find something to not like about him.
Right.
He's incredibly exciting to watch. Always going for the kill. I'm a huge fan. Mason Fowler, just along those lines, I would love to see Mason outside of the Submission Underground rule sets because I don't think he gets nearly as much credit as he should. 2 wins over Craig Jones is huge. But in terms of the entire, like taking a look at the entire jiu-jitsu community, and we're just speaking no-gi right now.
Yeah.
I think Nicky Rod.
Yeah.
I think Nicky Ryan. Right. And I think the Ruotolo brothers. I think those are my with Craig Jones are my top 5.
Well, the Ruotolos are really our only hope for moving the top seat from the Danaher Death Squad to somewhere else in the world. Like Nicky Rod, Nicky Ryan obviously are still training with Danaher. They're still part of Gordon's team. So it'll be interesting to see if the torch just goes to the next guy in the same gym or how it plays out, like who takes over.
Yeah, and I think too, like you still have other guys out there that are capable of carrying the torch and just like pushing, grappling forward. Yuri, Kynan.
Yeah.
Gary Tonin, the world's most exciting grappler when he grapples. JT, but a lot of these guys compete in a gi too,
right?
So. But if we're just talking strictly no-gi, I think that there's a lot of people out there, and these are enormous shoes to fill. The other thing too is don't sleep on the Daisy Fresh boys.
Very true.
Right? Like they only have Andrew Wiltsey at black belt right now, but
dude, Wiltsey's coming on too. Like it's you gotta watch out for Wiltsey, and he's been at black belt for what, like less than a year.
They just won the team title at No-Gi Pans. Like these guys are out there, and it's murderer's row. If anybody listening to this has the opportunity to go on YouTube, they like have started their own video blogs.
Yeah, they're good. They're good.
Of their training sessions and everything, and it looks like a fucking nightmare to be in that training room. And you have to watch about 2 or 3 minutes of this to realize why they won no gi pan. So
yeah,
that team as a whole is definitely capable of carrying the torch. But they're gi, they do gi and no gi, you know. So, but for them to go out and win the team title at no gi pans, yeah, they're pretty fucking legit.
The one person that we did not mention as the potential future of Nogi and Gordon's potential, I don't use the word replacement, that's bad, but it ain't Dillon Danis.
Yeah, what a douchebag.
Dude, if you see anybody, if the ESPN MMA or the UFC or anybody posts anything about any fighter, I always see Dillon Danis in the comments as like, that person is trash. Like Kamaru Usman is trash. He's not, man. Like, what are you talking about? You're fucking Dillon Danis. Shut the fuck up.
I'm trying to think of like a reasonable challenge for Kamaru Usman against Dillon Danis, and I think that Kamaru Usman could legitimately beat. I maybe not finish him, but I think that Kamaru Usman could legitimately beat Dillon Danis with one arm tied behind his back. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. I think that Kamaru Usman could beat Dillon Danis with one hand tied behind his back, with just using one hand. I'm not saying he finishes him. Maybe he just takes him to a decision. But I think that I would bet on Kamaru Usman to win that fight. And people are probably like, who the fuck is this guy talking about Dillon Danis? Kamaru Usman could kill both of us with one hand too. But Dillon Danis is a professional fighter. Kamaru Usman, I truly believe would beat him with one hand tied behind his back. Kamaru, if you want to detail how you would beat him with one hand behind his back, feel free to come on the show.
Open invitation. Did you see the Dillon Danis back and forth with Bisping on Twitter? Do you have a Twitter?
Yeah. Like
he was so thirsty. He was like, "Oh, should me and Bisping go live?" And Bisping was like, "No, man. Like, you're a little internet troll. Like, I don't care about you. I have nothing for you." And then Dillon Danis responds again. I was like, "Okay, cool. So do you want to go live?" Like, he's so thirsty for someone.
Yeah, it's bad. I will say this: if you go back to 2017 ADCC, when Gordon went through the 88 kilo bracket, that was the year that he beat. I don't know who he beat in the second round, but in the semis, I think he beat Romeo Barral, and then he subbed him, and then he subbed Keenan in the finals. He fought Dillon Danis to a judge's decision in the first round. Yeah. It was the first round of ADCC. So Dillon Danis' jiu-jitsu is legit.
Look at the comparison about what they've done since, 2017 was, by my math, 4 years ago. So Dillon's been lobbying for boxing matches against Jake Paul and throwing water balloons at him, and he had like a knee surgery or something, so he wasn't training, but like he's been getting jumped on by Khabib, he's been hanging out with Conor, and Gordon's been beating the best no-gi grapplers in the world. So I think the divide opened up pretty wide between the two of them in the last 4 years.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, his jiu-jitsu is legit. Like, he's a high-level jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's just a douchebag.
The title of this episode is A World Without Gordon Ryan, but I guess we could semicolon another episode that confirms Dillon Danis will never come on our show. Not that we want him.
Out of principle now, like we could never have him on the show.
I don't know, man.
No. Nope.
Do you know?
Nope.
Do you know what would happen? This is what would happen. If he reached out to us and said he wanted to come on the show, I would say yes. All right, we would set up the meeting. I would push record right away. And whatever happened. It was going out unedited. So if he came on and for 15 minutes just shit talked us for all the things we've said bad about him over the last year, I'd put it out. If he came on and was the nicest person ever, and
he wouldn't be, because I wouldn't be nice.
You have to approach this with the sense of like,
no,
let him be himself first to see how he would be.
No way.
Because this is the likely scenario that Dillon Danis would come on our show. He's never watched our show before. He's never heard of us. He's never done anything to know that we talk shit about him almost every episode. He just sees this is a very successful, popular podcast. It's about jiu-jitsu. I should get on there. He calls us, we let him on. And then, like, you can't just jump out the gate like, oh, you're a fucking piece of shit. You have to let him, like, at least.
I wasn't. You want to know something? I was just before you said that. I was contemplating what my first line would be. But you're a fucking piece of shit sounds like a good one. So I'm going to go with that. 100%. We've wasted entirely too much time talking about Dillon Danis. Like this is.
That should fill our quota for the next like 3 or 4 episodes.
No, and I'm sure we'll say something about him next episode too, because it's just we somehow always. It's like Jimmy Kimmel and Matt Damon, like. You know, they had that ongoing feud for years. It's like Dillon Danis, like at the end of the show. Anyway, I have 2 questions for you, getting back on topic.
Okay.
The first question is, do you think that Gordon Ryan comes back for the 2021 ADCC, which will technically be in 2022? And if he doesn't come back, who do you think we can expect to come out on top of the 99 kilo division? And the absolute for that matter.
I think he does come back for that ADCC 2021, which will be held in 2022. I think that will be his first. That'll be his return. That'll be how it's sort of billed and marketed, the return of Gordon Ryan. I think that he picks up right where he left off. Right now, if he doesn't compete again until ADCC 21, which is in 2022, I think he still wins it. I think he wins 99 kilos, and I think he wins the absolute. If he does not come back, I think at 99 kilos, it's Lucas Barboza, and I think at absolute, it's either Mason Fowler or Craig Jones.
Oh, wow. You're going with the light guys.
I'm going with the light guys. I'm a light guy. I gotta back my light
Well,
guys.
they're middleweights. They're not lightweights.
They're light compared to Nicky Rod and Lucas Barboza, and they're bigger than I am, but lighter than,
So I think he comes back. I think that if he doesn't come back, you can expect Lucas Barbosa or Vinicius Ferreira, who he beat him in the finals last year in 2019. And then I think the open weight is the absolute's wide open. I think you have Nicky Rod, Kynan, Buchecha if he's there. I would love to see Craig Jones or Mason Fowler or one of these middleweights, come up and make some noise. It's wide open though. It's wide open. ADCC does, favor wrestlers, so keep that in mind too, especially when we start getting into points and everything. So keep that in mind. Yeah. I think Nicky Rod can make a lot of noise. I think Nicky Rod can make a lot of noise.
Me too, and it's like we'll
see. But if Gordon comes back, he's going to win. If Gordon comes back, he's going to win.
I agree.
He's going to win his weight. He's going to win his weight division, whether it's 88, 99, or over 99, and he's going to win the absolute prediction.
Yeah, I just like in the absolute. I like seeing a lighter weight win the absolute. It's the BJ Penn mentality of it doesn't matter how big you are, I'm going to keep moving up, and that's why I like absolute, and it's fun to watch.
Lachlan Giles, friend of the show. Friend of
the show.
Submitted Muhammad Ali, submitted Patrick Gaudio, submitted Kynan Duarte, submitted, these guys were monsters, and he submitted 3 of them. He took gold last year in 2019 at the ADCC. So yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, I'm getting jazzed up for ADCC. Whether or not Gordon comes back, and we still have a long way to wait, so that's a bummer. But
maybe we'll take our show on the road.
There's an idea. Maybe we can get Gordon to come on our show to announce that he's returning for that ADCC, and then we'll go and travel there. Although our buddy Michael Sears would probably want to announce that kind of information himself, but
maybe we could announce that Michael Sears will be making the announcement.
I'll settle for announcing an announcement. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm the hype man's hype man. You know what I mean?
I think as a parting note, we should just say, I hope Gordon Ryan comes back. I was sad to learn that he might not.
It would be a huge loss for the sport if he doesn't compete again. But obviously, health is paramount. So if he is capable of competing again and competes again, I think that's great. If he's not, then I think his legacy is cemented as the best no-gi grappler of all time. But obviously, we would love to see him compete again.
Absolutely. And for anyone who was supposed to face Gordon Ryan, I'm available. Just send me a message.
I'm totally available. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. As always, we put the links below to our social media accounts. So if you want to follow us individually or if you want to follow the show, give the links a click and check them out.
Don't forget to give Epic Roll a follow on Instagram at EpicRollBJJ and use the coupon code podcast15 at epicrollbjj.com to take 15% off of your order. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed. We have a lot of content coming out in the next few weeks, and we don't want you to miss any of it.
I know
Dillon
what's coming.
Danis.
Oh, I knew it. I knew it was coming. It was coming. When you fucking started talking, I knew it. I'm like, he's going to say something about Dillon Danis.
All right, let's just say goodnight, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, especially Dillon Danis.
No. Thank you to everyone except
Dillon
for Dillon
Danis.
Danis.